Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
I am, sir.
What up, film fans? Happy Tuesday, and welcome to episode 326. Welcome to Robin Williams. Welcome to the month of December. You're listening to a brand new episode of the Cine-Men movie podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Juan. I am joined by the cast, the crew. Zach?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Jay?
Hey, how's it going?
What up, everybody in podcast land? YouTube, you're watching us live on Emisawa Productions YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us, guys. New episode. We're getting ready to dig into the month of December. The year is almost over.
Where the hell did it go, for one?
Where did it go, man? Time has passed so much this year. It's unbelievable.
Well, let's say once you go past 30, shit just speeds up until you're dead.
Yeah.
So,
Everything's downhill from after 20, right?
30. Your
30.
20s can be actually fun. It's when you get married and have kids and shit starts to go downhill.
Oof. But yeah, if anybody's out there listening, thank you for joining us this evening as we get ready to talk all about Robin Williams. But before we get into today's episode, last week we had a fun conversation. We went to the theater and we checked out Gladiator 2. If you guys have not seen Gladiator 2, go back and go give it a watch. It's currently in theaters. And you can go check out Gladiator 2 in theaters and then go listen to our latest episode. We had a fun conversation all about Gladiator 2. Denzel Washington stole the show, so go back and see what we rated that movie.
Have a double feature, our show and the movie.
Yeah. Or listen to the show on the way back from the theater. That's what
There
I
you
like
go.
to do. Yeah. So if you guys want to go check that out, all of our links to the past episodes and the social media are right here. If you're listening out in podcast land, it's facebook.com/the Cine-Men Movie Podcast. The Instagram is all one word, Cine-Men Movie Podcast. X, formerly known as Twitter, is at Cine-Men405. And then the email bag is CINEMEN921 at gmail.com. That's Cine-Men921 at gmail.com. So it's been a fun week. Like I said, last week, Gladiator 2, you can listen to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts at. iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean.
We're everywhere.
Everywhere. And we're on a network. Go check out our network. We are with prescribedfilms.com. That's www.prescribedfilms.com. Just hashtag the PFPN. You can find us, the Movie Defenders, Attack of the Killer podcast, all the great podcast shows, all in one network. Go check it out. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like I said, Emisawa Productions YouTube channel, Friday the 14th is back this week. Thursday, December the 5th, we're watching and reviewing Bloody Christmas. But before we get started, guys, we got a jam-packed show. Let's talk about some recent watches and recommendations. Zach, let's start with you. Check anything out worth watching?
Yeah, man, I think the theater was my home over Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna lie. We went and saw Moana 2, Wicked, and Red 1. So got those off the list. I'll just go ahead and I'll go ahead and admit when I'm wrong, Jay. Wicked's probably going to win Best Picture. I mean, I was shocked at how good it was.
Whoa!
And I literally audible said "wow" when the movie ended. Like I was just that impressed with it.
That's the talk that I've been hearing though, since before it came out, was that the press and everything was like this. There's Oscar talk for this movie.
Oh yeah, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. I would argue just go ahead and give them the statues right now. They're one of the two best performances of the year.
Whoa!
It's go check it out. You still haven't seen it yet?
No.
Jesus.
That's wicked.
What's the holdup?
Hey, I don't know what he's got to do with that, but we'll check it out. Don't worry.
Red One it is what it is. I had fun watching it. That's pretty much all I can say about it. And Moana 2, we're going to talk box office here in a minute. I liked it. It's, in my opinion, it's not as strong as the first one. So
that's reviews I've been hearing about it.
I had a pretty busy week. I'll throw all mine out there. I went through. Good morning.
Adjust your mic.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
There you go.
Good. My hand was over it. It's like that Verizon commercial. Good Morning Vietnam, Aladdin, Why Him, A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Hook, What Dreams May Come, 1 Hour Photo, Insomnia, The Fisher King, The Godfather, Funny People, Jack, and Flubber. If I had to recommend anything, go check out Funny People. It's on Netflix. I can't believe it's been 6 years on the podcast and I haven't talked about that movie, but believe me, it's coming next year. The Godfather is always a joy to rewatch. I think that's on Paramount Plus. We need to also dish out some of the Black Friday sales that were going on with all these streaming services. I think you get Hulu for $2.99 if you signed up for the first year. Same thing with Paramount Plus. So you guys missed out already, but you should have signed up for those. So yeah, very, very busy week. I'm trying to fit in some Christmas. Yeah. So we'll talk about some recent watches a little bit later. Some of the Robin Williams movies. But man, Funny People. You'll check it out. Netflix it up. Jay, what about you?
I continued my Batman run. Before I get to that, I spent a lot of time on watching YouTube videos this past week. I have no idea what the hell happened to me. I just got caught up in YouTube land and went down the hole. It wasn't even anything real specific either. I just got lost in different YouTube videos. And that was between watching all the Batman movies. So I went back to the 89 Batman and watched all of them all the way up to, I'm on the Dark Knight Rises now. And I have Gremlins and Gremlins 2 on the watch list for after Batman. So I'd recommend all the Batman shit out there, except Batman and Robin. That one.
Oh, come on.
The tone of that movie is completely off, man. 1 second it sounds like a cartoon, and the next minute they're trying to be serious. It's just all over the place, man. I remember seeing it in pain and seeing it in theaters. I walked out. That's one movie where I was like, "What the fuck was that?"
Oh no, you walked out during a Batman movie?
I didn't walk out. I walked out afterwards. I stayed and finished it. I grinned and bared it. Yeah, it was a brutal experience. It really was. I left contemplating life after that. I was like, what the fuck was that? Because I was like 15 when that came out, and I was just like, what was that? Because I grew up with 89 Batman Returns, and then just walking out of that one, I was just like, oh god.
And I believe all the Batman movies are on Max. If you guys out there listening want to stream them, so yeah. If you had to pick just one Batman movie, Jay, to recommend for anybody to start with, what would you pick?
89 Batman for sure.
89.
Just for the fact that it's the origin story in a way, it kind of brings you in to where, because it's the first dark Batman, so it would prepare you for everything else. If I threw you in the deep end and told you to watch Batman and Robin first, I think you might quit.
We've talked and reviewed all the live action Batman movies except for 2, and that's Batman and Robin and Batman Forever.
Batman Forever has its moments of being all right, but other than that, I just find it
Next up, guys, is gonna be box office. It was a huge weekend. It was one of the biggest weekends of the year. It's always the most anticipated weekend of the year if you're talking box office wise, which is Thanksgiving weekend. So whoever has them brought up first, you guys can talk about it. If Jay, or we can all talk about it all at once.
I'll give you the numbers and then we can talk.
All right.
We have at number 5 the best Christmas pageant ever at 3.2 for the weekend. Red One holding on a little bit. This is probably where it'll stay at for the rest of the theatrical run. It made 12.7 at number 4. Gladiator 2 held on very well because last week I think it had 55 million. This week coming in at number 3 with 31 million, and that's not a far drop off from last week because usually some of these movies, they have wicked dives because I'm getting ready to go to number 2, but they have some wicked dives in there where they drop from weekend to weekend like 50 to 60%. And this Gladiator 2 only dropped about 30%, 40%. And then you got Wicked at number 2 doing very well. It's only off by about 20 million from its debut last week with 81.2 million. And then the number 1 movie of the week, of course, Moana 2 with $139.8 million. So a very big box office haul this weekend.
Already worldwide, Moana's already grossed like $400 million. So, Johnny, we talked about what movie could maybe get up there with Inside Out 2. Moana 2 could possibly do that.
So Moana 2 has already made more money than Wicked.
Yep. It's
no.
it's really close.
It hasn't made more money than Wicked. It has since Moana 2's only been out a week. Last week, it doesn't have far to go to beat Wicked's grand total so far because grand total Wicked's at $180 million in America,
but worldwide.
Oh yeah, worldwide, Wicked and Moana is killing it.
Yeah, worldwide, Moana's made more than Wicked as of right now, but Wicked's like not far behind.
Wow. So it looks like what Craven is going to debut at 3, we believe.
Probably number 9, honestly. Is anyone care about that? I mean, truthfully,
hey, I want to see it because of Russell Crowe.
That's the only reason, because of Russell Crowe.
I'll sit for the dude that plays the main character. I've been on his career since he was in Kick-Ass. So
Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's a pretty good guy. Had lunch with him last week.
He has that. He has Craven 1 week, and then like 2 weeks later has Nosferatu, which is getting like amazing buzz right now. So
I really enjoyed him in Bullet Train. The one with Brad Pitt.
Bullet Train is good. Yeah.
Yep.
Real good.
Real good.
So that's the box office numbers, guys. It's crazy how it's just Thanksgiving weekend is going back and forth. It's almost like college football rankings the last few weeks. So if you guys are interested in hearing some college football rankings, tune in tomorrow as me and Craig will discuss some college football. Conference championship weekend is coming up. We'll get ready to talk about the bracket for the college football playoff. That'll be tomorrow, 7 p.m. Right here on this channel and Facebook Live on Amos Raw Productions YouTube channel. But before we get started, let's listen in on one of the guys, or the guy, that we're talking about today.
The end of this phase of our life, we find ourselves trying to remember the good times and trying to forget the bad times. We find ourselves thinking about the future. We start to worry, thinking, what am I going to do? Where am I going to be in 10 years? But I say to you, hey, look at me. Please, don't worry so much. Because in the end, none of us have very long on this earth. Life is fleeting. And if you're ever distressed, cast your eyes to the summer sky. When the stars are strung across the velvety night, and when a shooting star streaks through the blackness, turning night into day, make a wish. Think of me. Make your life spectacular. I know I did. I made it, Mom. I'm a grown-up.
All right, I'm gonna go cry. I'll be right back.
All right, today, guys, we are talking about Robin Williams, born July 21st, 1951, passed away August 11th, 2014.
It
Uh,
doesn't seem like it's been that long though.
Yeah.
Born in Chicago, Illinois. I did not know that, but he is a great great grandson of Mississippi Governor Senator J. McLaurin. His mother, Lori McLaurin, was a former model from Mississippi, and his father, Robert Fitzgerald Williams, was a Ford Motor Company executive from Indiana. Williams had English, German, French, Welsh, Irish, and Scottish in his ancestry. So, Robin Williams, great actor, comedian, everything in between. Where did you guys first see just the face of Robin Williams? Zach, we'll start with you and go round circle.
Honestly, I'm kind of curious to see everyone's answer for this, but honestly, the first time I saw him was probably Jumanji. It was a big player in our household, and I remember having the VHS and played it on loop a lot. And I mean, from there, God, I probably Flubber, honestly, because it probably came out 1 or 2 years after that. So yeah, just pretty much some of his kids' films, and then gradually started growing up and watching a lot of his mainstream films. What about you guys?
Jay, what about you? First time you just ever saw his face?
Oh, I'm going to be put myself way back in the old man machine, but Morgan Mindy.
Yep.
So that's where I seen him at, because I didn't watch the show very much, but I remember seeing him on TV when that show was on. So
The very first time I ever seen his face is going to be the Hook VHS cover.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So very, very first time. Didn't know who he was. Just saw Hook. I was like, he looks a little older for Peter Pan. But yeah, that's the very first time I seen that look. Let's go movie or TV show, Jay. I think you guys kind of already answered this. Same thing. Very first movie you probably ever seen him in.
oh shit, that I couldn't probably answer. I know I've seen a lot of his earlier stuff because the afternoon movies on back when we all used to only have 4 channels. They used to like, throw old movies on, and I probably seen like Used Cars or something like that on one weekend or some shit like that. Because I even had HBO in the house, so I honestly couldn't tell you, man. I just know after I discovered him, one of my earliest memories of discovering him was Good Morning Vietnam. I seen that in theaters with my dad.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
and just down the hall playing was Dirty Dancing, weirdly enough.
Zach, what about you? First time you've ever seen him in just a movie, a TV show, anything?
Yeah, it would have to be Jumanji. I mean that, it was one of those films that like it was a very sentimental movie growing up. And then like Flubber came out like 2 years after that in '97, and then we talked about it on our Patch Adams episode months ago, but that was one that I remember watching that on it was one of like in the NBC Saturday night movie. And I just remember like catching glimpses of that here and there. So
Mine would probably be again Hook. Hook was probably the very first time I seen him in a movie. I was a huge Peter Pan kid. I loved Peter Pan. And then boom, that's the first movie I remember seeing him in. So yeah, stuck with me forever. I wanted to be a lost boy.
Rufio was the shit.
See, I didn't like Rufio. I thought he was being mean to Peter. So,
I just thought he was one of those, I knew he would see the light at the end, but I thought he was cool. Here's this badass kid with this cool ass mohawk and everything that's leading the Lost Boys.
and dude, can we talk about that for a minute? Because I don't know, we've already discussed Hook in a full length episode. It was like episode 6 back in the day. But can you just believe how nobody takes that idea anymore? They're like, okay, like Zach, I'm going to get you back on that Lion King kick. Wouldn't have been it would have been awesome if they did a live action. I know technically they did Lion King 2, but I love how Spielberg took the idea of a sequel from an original Disney cartoon animated film and made it his own sequel.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me,
Well, I think he was doing a sequel to the book though.
but it's still like you don't get that today. You just get complete remakes of the very first film.
Yeah. I mean, Jay is right. It is like a direct sequel to the original 1911 book. But I see what you're saying. Like it wasn't there like a remake not too long ago, like from David Lowery? It was like a Disney Plus original or something like
It
that.
was terrible.
I didn't
Well,
even
they
watch
did
that.
do a sequel to the Disney movie. It was called Return to Neverland, and I think it came out 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about there was like a brand new like live action remake on Disney
But
Plus last
I know
year.
that the dude that plays Malfoy, Jason Isaacs, that was the last one I remember because he played Hook.
Yep, I remember that one too. Yeah, that was like 2002 or 2003, something like that.
Some little blonde head kid.
Yep.
Wasn't there also one with Hugh Jackman?
Yep, Pan.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Pan. I remember. Oh my god. Yeah.
Now I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, it just makes me think like, man, why don't they do that anymore? And Spielberg completely I even think he won an Oscar for like set design.
Well, it's because they built the entire damn ship on a set.
It got 5 nominations at
Yeah.
the 64th at the anniversary at the Oscars.
Yeah, man, it's just, and let's talk about maybe some stuff to where like, to me, Robin Williams, and I know it's like cliche and like, damn, you can't go an episode without bringing out that guy, but I put him in the same boat almost with like with Adam Sandler, because not only was he able to do like stand-up comedy, not only was he able to like sing and be funny, he put out so many like different movies, like dramatic performances. He still had his goofy, stupid comedy, but yet he also did his smart, witty comedy. Like, and I don't think I don't think it's fair to compare, because geez, in the 70s you had like Richard Pryor, and in the 80s you had like Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence and those guys.
Yeah.
And Robin Williams kind of came mid to late 80s, and he did his stand up, and you have all those guys from SNL as well, and Sandler. But I don't think we'll ever see a generation of those 80s to 90s comedians ever again.
No.
Today's comedians, to me, are nowhere near, and I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but they're nowhere as near as multi-talented as those guys were.
Because every comedian nowadays is afraid to offend somebody.
Yeah.
Back then, they just told a fucking joke. They didn't give a shit if they got a boo or not. They figured out what worked and what didn't.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's something that I think comedians nowadays have to worry about, the woke mob, and the fact that if they say one wrong thing, their entire career is canceled or whatever. Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, all those guys, they didn't care. They just wanted to make people laugh, and that was their ultimate goal.
I'm not even talking about just offending anybody. I'm talking about how some of the comedians today, in today's generation, has been put on the silver screen and given a full-length movie,
and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that their acting is just not there, but people have tried to cross them over into, movies and television, and dude, they're again.
Well,
I probably can't do any better. I'm not flacking on them, but they're not any good.
And it's also a different environment, and the idea that those guys, they worked their asses off. They went to the comedy clubs. They got, they did their time. Now, someone could get popular off a TikTok video, and that starts their entire career. I feel like there's no work put into doing that type of work anymore. Does that make sense? It does.
There's some of it though is also that a lot of studios nowadays don't like, because I remember growing up in the mid 90s and 2000s where there were tons of comedies being released into theaters and everything. Now, because they were pretty cheap to produce. unless you're doing a Jim Carrey movie, then you automatically tack $20 million onto your budget for his salary. But, you have the studios nowadays aren't willing to invest in a comedy movie anymore because there's no profit in comedy movies anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Who's
why
that
we
one?
don't have that's probably why we don't have a group of. Kevin Hart's the last comedian I really remember having a decent career that was a comedian.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Who's that guy that they're trying to push right now? Bert Kreischer, is that his name?
Yeah.
He's
The only one I know of that's new is Matt Rife.
Yeah, he's Matt Rife.
He's not bad.
Bert Kreischer's came out with a few.
Isn't that he had a movie like The Machine? Didn't that come out last year? Yeah.
With Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill's in that.
Yeah.
His whole gimmick is where he takes off his shirt and does his stand up in his shirt.
Yeah.
So
I'll agree with you, Jay. I will say probably Matt Rife is probably the most recent, the newest comedian that's really like skyrocketed to like stardom.
Well, he's genuinely funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's obviously, if you're not going to be funny, if you're going to be a comedian, you got to be funny. And Matt Rife, every time I see one of his videos, I bust out laughing. So
I sit there and because whenever I see comedians on anything, I feel a little cringe because I grew up with, guys like, we're discussing today, like Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy. Those are the comedians I grew up with. And even Red Fox, I grew up with his shit too. And I used to sit there and listen to old Dirty Trucker records. I don't know if you know what those are. These are these records that just tell old dirty sex jokes. I had a weird warped sense of fucking humor by the time I was a teenager, but these were from like the mid 70s. And so that's where my comedy came from. And just I can tell when people are trying too hard to be funny.
Yeah.
Or let's not even debate. Some of the people have their stuff written for them today.
Oh yeah, Robin. What makes me like Matt Rife, because he's a current talent nowadays, is because a lot of the videos that I've seen, I don't know what Zach has seen, I don't know what you've seen, but a lot of the videos that I've seen, he's not telling jokes or anything. He's interacting with his crowd. He's asking his crowd questions.
Yep.
And he's just going off by what they give him. And that right there is a tell of a good comedian when you can sit there and be on the fly. And Robin was just like that. Robin could walk into a room and sit there and just look at the room and sit there and come up with 1,000 funny things to do with a fucking stapler. It's like, okay. And that's what I think's missing from this generation's comedians, is that they're not genuinely funny. They're not afraid to take the steps that past comedians have taken to become famous and funny.
Let's also put maybe how much are they like? Maybe the ceiling for them is, not through the roof. Maybe the ceiling for them is 5 foot tall. I know for sure nowadays, like, the budget is so tight that Jay, you brought it up, I think, in the Miss Doubtfire episode. One take was like 75 takes for Robin Williams, even though like a lot of his stuff was improv. Like, I don't think that much freedom is given in today's like movies or maybe even comedian shows. What do you think?
It's not.
Because they're not funny.
It's not. I mean, it's
another comedian. I grew up in an era where Jerry Seinfeld was on TV for 9 years. Dude's a billionaire because of Seinfeld. A billionaire with a B. And that show is great. And I don't think a show like that could be made today.
I think it could. It just wouldn't be. It would have nowhere near the success of what Seinfeld, Friends, and all those shows had in the '90s. It's just a different. It's a different world now.
Damn near like 40 million people watched the finale to Seinfeld when it aired.
And I heard it sucks. I haven't seen it personally, but that's what
it's not bad. It's a show where they're not supposed to learn anything, and finally for all the bad shit they do, they go to jail.
Yep.
But
I think probably, and this is a whole nother conversation about sitcoms, but like, Robin Williams dipped his toes in a few sitcoms. I think Mork and Mindy is what made him like.
I could be wrong, but Zach, you have the powerful internet. Did he not make his debut as Mork on Happy Days?
I believe so. Yeah, I think you're right, and it kind of spinned off.
And
Yep,
then
you're right. You're right. Happy Days, and then Mork and Mindy was right after that. You're right.
Yep.
Interesting.
So,
You know what?
there's like a
one of the,
it was one of the weirdest episodes of Happy Days because they acknowledge aliens exist because he's Mork from Ork, and and Nanu Nanu, that's his that's goodbye and his language and shit like that.
you know what though? You go back and watch that Mork and Mindy show. It is still hysterically funny. I mean,
really,
yeah. There's one episode in particular which he was on. If you ever get a chance, I don't know if you can find the full episode on YouTube where it's like inside the actor studio with Robin Williams. Dude, it is one of the best things ever. And there's a particular episode of Mork and Mindy where it's Mork meets Robin Williams, and they kind of discuss like how just weird it was for Robin to be like, I got to play myself, but also play this character, and like, how do I balance the comedic tone of it?
it looks like all 4 seasons are streaming on Pluto.
I know what I'm doing.
If you guys want to watch Mork and Mindy, so. I forgot another movie that I kind of just started. The first time I seen him in was Popeye.
Oh yeah,
Dude, I hated that movie.
Yeah, it's not a very good movie at all.
No,
But even today, I'm like, he's always been my live action Popeye. I don't think they've ever tried to create anything.
They haven't because
like
the last one failed, and it wasn't because of Robin Williams either. It was just because of the movie. I was a kid. I was the target demographic for that movie, and I thought it sucked as a kid. I liked Robin Williams just fine. I really did. I thought Shelley Duvall was all right too, but other than that, it just didn't feel. It's just.
There is a horror movie coming out next year called.
I've seen the trailer to that. It looks
Popeye
stupid and cool.
Popeye the Slayer, man.
so you think Friday the 14th will cover that sometime next year?
We'll talk about it. But yeah, Popeye is also streaming on Pluto, so.
So if you want your Robin Williams fix, go hit up Pluto.
Yeah.
But one of the things that another thing, like I said, I grew up with these comedians and everything. I had HBO early in the episode, and every now and then HBO was the place to go if you wanted a good boxing fight or a great comedy special.
Oh, dude.
And Robin Williams Live from Broadway was one of those ones I remember as a kid just sitting there watching like, holy shit, this dude is hilarious. There's a joke where he talks about eating a woman out and how it looks from a woman's point of view, and he's like sitting there he's hairy as fuck, and he sits there and puts his like arm and his face down in his the crease of his elbow, like he's eating out. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. He talks about his cocaine use.
Yeah, that's something that I will say that throughout his comedy specials, he is not shy to talk about his alcoholism and drug use, and he makes it in a way where it's just like, yeah, I fucked up, but I'm going to tell it in a really funny way. And it's just like, that makes sense.
One of the documentaries that's out there, and it kind of started this whole Robin Williams kick, because I think, Zach, we might have talked about it last year or the year before, but it's when I think you recommended it to me, and it was a Come Inside My Mind, a Robin Williams story or something like that. It's on HBO Max.
Yep.
And that's what kind of started this whole, hey, let's dedicate a year one time to Robin Williams. And like, man, you want to talk about the most depressing, saddest documentary you'll ever see. It was that one.
Oh, I got one worse than that. It came out, I think, last year, the year before. It's called Robin's Wish. And it literally chronicles like it's like a half and half documentary where it's like it chronicles the last 2 years of his life, where like through friends, family members, they just noticed his gradual decline. And on the other side of the documentary is about like they talked to neuroscientists about like what he was diagnosed with, Lewy body dementia, and it was going to get bad. It was going to get really, really bad. And I mean, it's incredibly sad what happened, but yeah, like they have like behind the scenes footage of like him working on the third night of the museum movie, and you could just tell like something wasn't right. Something just was off, and everyone was just like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just sleepy." And his wife tells like really horrific like nights that he had that it's just, yeah, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And you can actually stream that documentary on Peacock. So
Oh, okay.
that's another one I highly recommend.
So I remember whenever he's one of the, I don't usually get too emotional over celebrities passing away.
Yeah.
But whenever because we were watching TV, my ex-wife and I was flipping through the channels and she's like, Robin Williams just died, babe. I'm like, what? And they're like, she's like, yeah, they're saying he killed himself. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. That's one like you know how people talk about like I know where I was when I remember when I heard someone died. That Robin Williams, I distinctly remember we were coming down and stopped. We were in our neighborhood and we stopped by one of our neighbor's house and we rolled down the window. She said, "Did you hear about that comedian dying?" I was like, "No, who was it?" I think it was Robin Williams, and hauled ass to the house, and it was on every news station all over. I was like, and that's just one of those that when you hear it, you're just like, no, that can't be real. That's got to be like some fake news or something. And it was, I distinctly remember like days afterwards, there was like a bunch of specials about him, a bunch of memorials, and it was so sad.
Because it wasn't just your normal, it wasn't your normal news. He
brought such joy to the world.
Yeah.
Knowing when he did pass away, it was and especially how he passed away. Because I've read about it today that I don't know if I should bring up how he passed away, but it's just fucked up. I kind of sit there and, in a sense, kind of understand why he did what he did, because he still had enough mind left to realize that it's going to get fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to end it on my terms.
and yeah, that I don't ever, we on the show don't ever want to, like actively say suicide is the correct answer, which it never is. But like, I agree with what you're saying, Jay. It was almost like his last ditch. Like, this is how I'm going to die is going to be by my hand. It's not going to be this disease that's eating alive at me.
Exactly. It's going to be the way I'd want to.
Yeah.
So.
Do
you remember where you were at when you heard he passed?
Man, I don't think I do. 2014, I was probably working at FYE, and it was just one of those things like, I don't believe it. We didn't have really internet at the tip of our fingers like we do now, kind of. But it was just an interesting day, and of course, working at one of those places, anytime something like that happened, we would get phone calls. Do you have this soundtrack? Do you have do you have him live on HBO at this? So people would come in and go through the comedy section, and so yeah, it was a pretty sad day throughout the entire shop where I was at. So but yeah, you never kind of wish anything upon like that with anybody, and whether they're celebrities or not, there's always a way to talk about it. There's always a way out. There's always somebody else on the other line that you can try to talk to. We here, even at the show, have put up phone numbers. We've put up emails. You guys can always reach out and discuss anything with us. We'll talk movies. We'll talk anything to you guys. So, yeah. But if you guys have not listened to any of our past episodes where we do talk about profile pieces, we've had some pretty fun ones in the past. We've done Dwayne Johnson. We've done recently most with Denzel Washington.
Yep.
Then today we've also now doing Robin Williams. We've done Tom Hanks.
Yep.
So they've been some pretty fun episodes, I'll say.
A cool fact about Robin Williams I really like that shows you how down to earth and grounded he was in a weird way was that he loved video games, like loved them. Like he there's a time where I sat there and seen a bit where he was on Letterman or some shit like that, talking about how he's playing Call of Duty and he's getting his ass handed to him by 8-year-olds. It's like, yeah. And he does a whole little bit about him being, told off by a kid, because he's getting his ass with the Call of Duty. He loved him so much he named one of his kids Zelda. If that tells you anything.
Yep.
She's a director now, right? Didn't she just recently direct something?
Yeah, she had a Lisa Frankenstein this year.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie.
So.
I think also I saw something too where he's just like really genuine as far as like anytime he was shooting a movie, he would look for local homeless people to like give them like jobs and make sure they had a meal or something while they were filming and doing stuff like that, putting them to, like getting them a place to sleep and eat and help out around the table and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard, in so many interviews and just different aspects of just researching this is like everything I heard from other people was that he was such a genuine down to earth person, whether it be, like you said, helping homeless while filming a movie or just making the crew and cast laugh while in between shots. One of the stories I love is that he would always randomly, when he was in the San Francisco Bay, he would just go to random comedy stores or comedy clubs and just show up and just do 30 minutes on a set or whatever. Like there'd be an up and coming comedian, and then he would go backstage and like he would have the honor of saying, "Hey, don't leave. Robin Williams is here, and you guys are gonna get like 15-30 minutes of stand up." I was like, that's just how much he cared.
Business.
Yeah.
Coming from being a pro wrestling fan, that's what they call giving back to the business.
Yeah.
You try to make sure there is the business to have for the future generations, because if you let it die with you, then there is no business.
Yeah.
It's also just like a selfishness act of like, hey, I want to leave this place better than the way I found it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
I've done some of the drugs that he's done, and I holy shit, I can see where some of his mind went sometimes. It's a crazy experience. I'll give you that. Because he talked about being on cocaine a lot. That was his drug of choice, was cocaine and weed.
So let's get ready to dig into. Let's talk our top 5 Robin Williams movies. All right, guys, if you guys want to play along, go ahead and send us in some emails, send us in some Facebook comments. I have one I'll read before too long, if I can find it. This one is from Dusty. Number 5, Jumanji. Number 4, Awakenings. Number 3, Patch Adams. Number 2, Insomnia. Number 1 is Hook. He left off Aladdin because it's obviously number 1, but left it off because it's everyone's favorite. Don't know about that one, but we'll get into it. Zach, do you want to go first? Do you have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, 3 honorable mentions. I have Hook, Patch Adams, and then I rewatched Insomnia. I think the second or third Christopher Nolan movie he ever did, and it's fantastic. Him, Al Pacino, Hilary Swank. It's a really great crime drama. You want to go with my number 5, or you want to do your honorables?
We'll go honorables as well.
Okay.
I'll just rapid fire through mine real quick. The Angriest Man in Brooklyn, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Jack. Jay, you have any?
No honorable mentions here.
All right. So,
well, Jay, go ahead and go into your number 5 then.
Number 5 is Jumanji. I remember seeing it in theaters, thinking because it was on my Robin Williams kick. Yeah, growing up, I seen quite a few of his movies in theaters. Weirdly, but just being there and seeing it, even then, the monkey scene was shit. But I don't know if you guys remember the whole monkeys in the movie, but that was just. But I loved his performance in this movie. The whole fish out of water, being a kid and then taking the Jumanji and then coming back and him playing that wild man that was stuck in the fucking jungle for, what was it, 20 years, 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that's my number 5. That was a movie I enjoyed a whole lot as a kid. Still do.
Jumanji was a fun watch. I had forgotten how much it was actually still good and still holds up to this day. Number 5 for me is going to be Dead Poet Society. Man, what else? What else can you say other than just the performance he gives? As he was always good in those movies where he was the mentor, the teacher, the person who stepped back and was like, "Hey, let me show you this." So, Dead Poet Society to me was a lost gem that I haven't recently discovered since maybe just a few years ago. But give it a watch. It's good. It's probably one of his best acts of performances. So, Zach?
Number 5. I didn't see this in theaters, but I distinctly remember when this came out, and it was like a huge deal that he was like playing against typecast roles. And it's always one that like after he passed away, I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, man, that is quite a performance from him. Number 5 is 1 Hour Photo.
That's what I was thinking it was.
Dude, this movie, it did get pretty good reviews when it came out. It's like sitting at 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think this is criminally underrated. It's such a gem of a movie, in my opinion. He basically plays one of the photo guy at those 1 hour photo shops that you would see at Target and Walmart way back in the day. And he basically becomes obsessed with the family that he develops the pictures for. And it's such a creepy role. It's such like I said, untyped cast role for him. And it's so perfect. Yeah, go check it out if you've never seen it.
So there was a scene in that movie. Remember when he's talking to the kid in the park? I think it's the park that they're walking through. And they start the scene. They're both at each side of the screen. And, and they're having this conversation. And as the boy trusts Robin Williams' character more and more, they become framed in the center of the screen. I'm like, that was, they're not on opposite sides anymore. That he comforted the boy enough to get him close to talk to him, and at that point, you don't know what the fuck he's going to do to the kid.
Yeah. Well, and there's also another scene that one that you mentioned is really good, but the one that really got me was I think it's like a nightmare sequence where he's just sitting on the bed and his eyes start to bleed, and it just blood pours out of his eyes, and it's just every time I watch that movie, that scene still gets me to this day. So yeah, it's not streaming anywhere, unfortunately, which is a shame, but you can rent it from Apple or Fandango for $3.99 or YouTube. But yeah, number 5, 1 Hour Photo, top 5 for sure.
Number 4, Jay.
Number 4 for me is we did a whole episode about it, so I'm not going to go into much more detail about it. But Miss Doubtfire, that one just holds a special place in my heart. One of those childhood films that
Speaking of childhood films, number 4 for me is going to be Hook. Can I also bring this up? I've sitting here and noticed it, and throughout watching some of the movies lately, some of my favorite Robin Williams movies where I'm like, man, Robin Williams is so good in this. You look and you see the counterpartner in this movie, and it's almost like they're one up in each other. Like in Hook, you have him, and he's so good as Peter Pan and Peter Banning. But then in the other hand, you're like, man, Dustin Hoffman blows it out of the water, literally, as Hook. And then same thing with Insomnia. I noticed that he was really good in the person he played in Insomnia. And then,
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino just up levels him one after another. And it's like, Same thing, Dead Poet Society, Ethan Hawke, Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon. It's like, man, right when Robin Williams is there, somebody else just snags that brass ring. Which also makes for a good movie. I was going to bring this up too. He's been nominated for 4 Oscars and he's won one. So I forgot to bring that up earlier as well.
Yep.
So, but yeah, man, with as much as you can say about Robin Williams and Hook, Dustin Hoffman is an outdoer as well. So great movie. Hook is number 4 for me. Zach?
Number 4 for me. I'll just go and put Aladdin. I mean, I think honestly, I just can't visualize or hear anyone else's voice as the genie. That it doesn't. With that whole remake with Will Smith, I was like, what are you doing? That just no, don't.
If you need to imagine what it would sound like to see an animated one without him, watch the second of that.
Oh yeah,
the guy that plays Homer Simpson plays the genie in that one.
And I guess there was such a backlash. He came back for the third Aladdin.
They made sure. They made sure when they made Aladdin 3 that they were like, hey, Robin Williams is back, y'all.
Yeah,
they had it on the fucking VHS cover. It was all over the. They didn't advertise the movie. They were just like, Robin Williams back as the genie, y'all. That's how we're selling part 3.
Yeah, and dude, if you just YouTube just the behind the scenes of Aladdin, him doing the voice, just trying different voices, it's insane. Like just all the little.
I read that he done like 52 voices in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane that his ability just to jump just different characters and little incidents and little funny tidbits. It's just like, man, I don't know anyone. I don't know any other comedian that could do that. Billy Crystal asked him once. It's just like, it was like, I think I'm fast. He's faster. There's just no one could really keep up with him. And that shows in Aladdin.
Was it always Robin Williams to be the genie or Aladdin? Or I could have sworn I heard something about they went to Billy Crystal first. Or is that because I know for the longest time in the 90s, Robin Williams and Billy Crystal were like always. I know they had the movie together, but they were always being compared side by side.
No, I think it was always Robin Williams for the genie. I think they wanted Billy Crystal for Woody and Toy Story, but he said no. And then when they did Monsters Inc., they said, "Hey, no, I'm going to be Mike." He saw the gradual progression of Pixar, and he said, "No, I got to get in on this," and so that's how he got Mike in Monsters Inc.
Interesting.
So
that's your number 4.
Yep, number 4 is Aladdin. What about you, Jay?
My number 3, we're on number 3 now, is Hook. I was going to bring it up when you brought up Hook for your number 4, but my number 3 is Hook.
Okay.
Seeing it as a kid in theaters was cool. I remember the scene that coming in late. I even remember what scene we came in. They were on the plane and the kids throwing the fucking baseball on the ceiling. And even seeing that as a kid, I'm like, oh, I hate this kid. I didn't like the kid. As a kid, I didn't like his kid. The girl I didn't mind too much, but his son, I didn't like his son as a kid.
I still didn't like the son in this rewatch.
I think the son is a kind of little bit ass.
No.
And I thought that as a kid, but I always thought, Rufio was fucking cool as shit. It was one of my first real experiences with a Steven Spielberg movie, and I didn't even realize I was watching a Steven Spielberg movie, as a kid. We didn't understand the gravitas of that. But by the time he done his next movie, Jurassic Park, I sure knew who in the hell he was. But but watching Hook, I just watched it and thought it was an amazing little flick. I like the style of it. I like I like the whole setting of the sequel about, like we talked about earlier, getting a rare opportunity. What if Peter Pan grew up and had kids? What would happen?
Yeah. So original. Such a good movie. Underrated classic. It doesn't get talked about enough today. So that was your number 3.
Yep.
My number 3 is going to be What Dreams May Come. Super depressing movie. Let me just throw it on y'all. Robin Williams is a pediatrician. He loses his kids. His kids die in a car accident. he dies 4 years later, only to kind of haunts his wife for a couple days, really, and then he, uh, you know, sadly enough, strange, right? His wife dies by suicide.
Mm.
She kills herself, and now Robin Williams is in heaven trying to find out where his wife is, and his friend slash guardian angel really is like, hey, she doesn't come to this place. They go somewhere else, to a much darker place. And Robin Williams is spent throughout the rest of this movie trying to find his wife, who is now like a lost soul. She may not remember him because of the way she took her life. And such a depressing movie. But you know what? It's really good. The colors, the soundtrack, the score, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in it. Yeah, such a sad movie, but it's really good. And Robin Williams just shows you, again, he gives you some limelight when he's a pediatrician talking to some of the kids, but then, man, he puts on his acting chops and he goes to work, and it's a very interesting, entertaining film. So that's my number 3. Zach?
Number 3, it's already been mentioned. Jumanji. Like I said, it was very much a childhood classic of mine. That I agree with you, Jay. You know, the say what you will about the visuals in that movie. That I think that movie still holds up to this day, honestly. And part of it is his performance. I think Bonnie Hunt's really good. Kirsten Dunst's really good. It's just
Got
a
a crush
classic.
on her when I was a kid.
I think everybody did. I think it just goes back to it's just a fun action adventure film. You know, they made a lot of those in the 90s, and you know, I remember when they announced that they were going to do like a spiritual sequel, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle. I'm just like, no, we don't need that. And you know, those two films, they're fine. I do appreciate in the first film they do pay respect to Robin Williams in that first one. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, Jumanji's always been a right up there with one of his films. So that's my number 3.
Nice. Jay, number 2?
Number 2 is his performance in Good Will Hunting. The speech about his wife and everything. His whole performance in that movie. You know, he broke down Matt Damon in that movie like hardcore, and that's what you talked about earlier. You know, being powerhouse together, and that's what happened when those two were on screen together. They just fucking there was something there between the two of them. It just meshed super well.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect combination. Number 2 for me. I won't spend too much time on it because you hit it right on the head. No, wait, that's your number 2. My bad. Number 2 for me is Good Morning Vietnam. This is another one of those movies where you see him. He's funny. He's sad. He's angry. He's so many different emotions in this movie. Again, it's just like, man, where has this guy been my entire life? As far as just that character, it's something that is to me was always an original idea. Like, wow, how did you come up with the story? Again, the story never was like retold. You know, it came out like what in the 80s, and it still has not been.
I think 87, 88.
Yeah, still hasn't been reimagined. I really do think this movie is probably, if it's just Robin Williams and he's not sharing. Now, don't get me wrong. Like Forrest Whitaker's in it. There's some other good side cast members, but Good Morning Vietnam is probably the movie where he is. let me put it this way. I don't want to. He is. It's his movie, and he doesn't have to share the screen with anybody who is outdoing him in this movie.
Yeah, this is his starring vehicle. This is like he's been in a movie before this, but you know, this is him and his, you know, comedy right there in your face. Because other times he's just playing a role.
Yeah.
This is Robin Williams being Robin Williams.
Well,
Yep.
Not even that though, but he doesn't have a Matt Damon to one up him. He doesn't have an Al Pacino to one up him. He doesn't have a Dustin Hoffman to one up him. And even in the scenes where he is flat out just dramatic, There's a scene where he's in love with a local, and she says she can't be with you. There's a scene where he finds out his best friend, one of the little Vietnam guys, is like a backstabber and a terrorist. He breaks down and he cries, and it's like you see him at his original comedy, but then you see him where he's just like, "Hey, I can do everything," and he does it all in this movie. And Good Morning Vietnam is just such a good movie. So that's my number 2, just because of how overall performing that dude is in this movie. So number 2.
My number 2, I'm right there with Jay. It's a Good Will Hunting. His only Oscar that he won in his career, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, not only is his performance incredible, the screenplay that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon did is just phenomenal. That the everyone mentions the bench sequence where he just kind of lays in on Matt Damon and says, "Hey, you're not shit. No, you don't know nothing about life," and it's just it. Matt Damon did say that after he passed away, that there were so many flowers and memorials that were sent that people made around that bench that's still there to this day. And it's just that movie. He's so good in the movie. Even different other scenes. There's another scene later in the film where he kind of just gets fed up with Matt's BS and says, "Look, you're wasting my time. Just tell me what you want to do," and he can't do it. And it's just even that type of scene is just it's just phenomenal. It's a phenomenal movie. We started last year with it, or this year with it, and yeah, I think 20 plus years later, it still holds up as his best performance. So yeah, number 2 is a Good Will Hunting.
One cool little fact about Good Will Hunting, that without Kevin Smith getting the movie, the script, what the hell would it been called? The Weinstein Company, Miramax.
Yeah.
There would have been no Robin Williams in that movie.
Well, Robin Williams also gave up his fee to do the movie. I think he let the production have his fee that it would have cost to hire him for the movie. So that's how much he believed in it.
Interesting. Number 1, Jay.
We'll have to agree with our listener out there that it's not everyone's favorite, but it's my favorite performance of his. We're not going quality movie. I'm just saying performances that I like. You know what I mean? But Aladdin's my number 1 because I was 10 years old when that movie came out, and I have a cool little story about seeing Aladdin in theaters. I'm 10 years old. I'm sitting down there in the the middle of the theater, just enjoying the movie and everything, and I see a guy in the very back row, and come to find out he's huffing paint in the back of the theater while we're watching Aladdin. So, welcome to Southside Oklahoma City. That's how they roll.
I thought you were going to say Robin Williams was behind you.
Hey, shit, that'd been cool too. But no, we had a doped out guy he was helping paint. He had gold paint all over his fucking face. So I was excited. That was my experience seeing Aladdin. That's what it makes it so endearing to my heart, that I got to see such a hardcore moment in life during Aladdin. It's like, what the fuck? I'm being entertained by the movie. I'm being entertained by some new experience in my life. It's like, holy shit. So,
was it blue paint at least?
No, it was gold, because there's something gold paint that gets higher.
Oh, the genie had gold bracelets.
Hey, he was trying to. There was a lot of gold in that movie, so hey, he wanted to make sure he had his gold. Because how they do it is you know how they do that shit. They sit there and take a paper bag, spray the shit in a plastic bag, and then huff it, dude. That's how they get. Dude, it was so fucking weird. I know this seems like a weird term to come up with number 1 and just tell a paint huffing story, but hey, that's my experience with Aladdin.
Yeah.
Whenever it came out in Blu-ray, I fucking bought it instantly. It was one of those ones I had to have because I wanted to see how it looked, because I love the vibrancy of the movie as well.
I will say Disney, their like 90s golden age of animation, that The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, they've had like multiple like Blu-ray, 4K, steelbook releases like throughout the years.
Yeah, I got to be a child through that era, so it was pretty cool.
Aladdin. Number one for me is going to be Good Will Hunting. I'm always this big, and next year when we talk Matthew McConaughey and Adam Sandler, it'll be the same thing. I'm always quality over quantity kind of guy. I know it doesn't seem that way with how much I just have to look and buy and collect, but out of all the people that I've always like admired the most, whether it be Denzel or Adam Sandler or Jason Statham, a lot of these guys that I just gravitate to, Tom Hanks, they could be some of those movies that are like, oh man, Jumanji, amazing childhood memories, or it could be like Aladdin, the music, the voice, but it's the performances that last as I get older that just stick to me like flubber, if that makes sense. You see what I did there?
Oh
But
yeah, cha-ching.
but it's the way that they still gravitate towards me as an adult compared to, oh yeah, Aladdin was cool. Don't get me wrong, I rewatched Aladdin, but it didn't talk to me the way Good Will Hunting does 20 some odd years later.
Yeah,
It doesn't talk to me the way he does in Dead Poet Society. So the movies, and I can't wait to redo this with Adam Sandler to see what movies make it the top list next year. But it's like, as I get older, that's what I gravitate towards the most is let's see what kind of life lesson I can learn in the performance through the eyes of Robin Williams.
yeah,
And so that way, that's what makes Good Will Hunting to me that just stands the test of time. Was it a childhood favorite? No. Was it a childhood memory? No. But it's something that still has like gravitated towards me these past few years. The first time I saw it, all the way to now, it's like, man, that's what you go to the movies for. At least in
It
my
is a life lesson movie.
yeah.
yeah.
So
It is one of those that'll sit there after while watching it and after watching it, you're just sitting there kind of like, holy shit, I need to kind of like question my life again. Holy fuck. Because there's certain movies that'll do that to me as well. You know, because you sit there watching, like, oh my god, I'm a fuck up. Oh fuck, my life is not cool. You know, or you just start to question other things. Go ahead.
I'll be honest. Like from time to time, like since we did that episode, I've gone back and listened to the speech that he had with Matt Damon, and it's still. I don't care how old you are, whether you're in your early 20s or early 60s, that there is something universal about that speech about
and
no matter what you think there's always something more, and there's always something that you still haven't experienced in life.
Zach, did we do the Denzel episode this time last year or 2 years ago?
I think it was
2 years ago, right?
I think, yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
So the last time we did that with Denzel, I went through the same thing, and I think my number one movie was like Fences or something. And it's, guess what? It's the performances, it's the life lessons in that movie. It's his speech that he gave. If there's anything I can talk and push out there for anybody to go watch on YouTube, it's the Denzel Washington Fall Forward speech.
Oh yeah.
Somebody showed me that at work, and it's just been, if I'm having a bad day, if I can't get through something, it's that fall forward speech that continues to like just let's do it. So and now this Robin Williams speech that's at the end of Jack. So again, movies are just movies, but
You never know where inspiration will strike.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for a lot of us, this is where we get some of our inspiration from. So that's why my number one is Good Will Hunting, because it just lasts. So Zach, finish us off. It's number one for you.
All right, so I got to go on the opposite side of the spectrum. You end with his most dramatic performance. I really tried to keep this out in my top 5, but I just couldn't do it because after he passed away, I just went on a binge of like all his stand up. And that's, to me, that's what I know Robin Williams to be. That's his comedy. Maybe not so much his comedic performances in films, but his just like live stand up. So number one, if I had to pick one, I'm going to do, like you talked about it earlier, Jay, Live on Broadway. I actually have all his stand-up specials on this like 5 disc
Just the HBO box set, something like that.
Yeah. It has Off the Wall, An Evening with Robin Williams from 1983, An Evening at the Met from 1986, which that's an incredible stand-up if you've never seen that one. Live on Broadway, and then Weapons of Self-Destruction, which was his last one in 2009. The Live on Broadway one, the jokes are they're very timely and when it was done because Bush was in office and all this and that. So they are a little dated, but man, he does a whole spiel about Jesus and Easter and
isn't that the one where he says when he talks about how Judas is when he talks about the Last Supper?
Yes. Yeah.
Is it me, Jesus?
He said he was just like, and for the Last Supper, don't you think they went out for Chinese? I think so. So it's just like, and it's just like, oh, no shoes, no sandals. Okay, you come in now. And so it's just like, it just goes on. It's just like, that was his gift. He brought so much joy and laughter to the world. I've heard so many stories about one of his big things he loves to do was went overseas and entertain the troops. And that, we've talked about it on the show before, Johnny. It's just like, if you could just make someone's day, whether through laughter or conversation or whatever it is, that's that's worth so much more than, how much money a movie makes out at the box office. And I think that's what really drove him as an individual. So yeah, I had to put, like I said, I watched that one and I watched Live at the Met after he passed away, like on loop, because it brought me so much joy. And that's what I want to remember him by.
Those are on HBO Max, should be too, right?
I think they're on Max, but they're all on YouTube. Like all his stand up is on YouTube. So
yeah, that's it. Top 5 Rob Williams movies. If you guys want to continue to play along, send in some emails, share us, and we'll talk about them next week on next week's episode. We'll do an email bag segment next week. You know what? I don't think it's fair to do anything below. But if I had to rank and give his career star rating, I'd give it a 5. Agreed. You guys?
Agreed.
Next week.
No, Robin Williams had a terrible career. He wasn't funny. He couldn't do shit.
Next week, we're talking the 10-year anniversary of Interstellar. It also is
getting an IMAX release.
But if you notice what we're doing here, today is ending a profile piece. Next week we are starting a profile piece with Matthew McConaughey. So this will lead into, we'll have a whole episode one day next year dedicated to Matthew McConaughey. Another
How to Date a Guy in 10 or whatever the hell that movie is.
There we go. Yeah, how to lose a guy in 10 days. The Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. One of those are going to be Valentine's Day episodes. We just don't know which one yet. So the guy is a stellar actor. But
what else is he, Johnny?
He's also a pretty big Texas Longhorn fan.
No, tell us more.
So next week, we dive deep into the black hole. We talk about Christopher Nolan, Anne Hathaway, Matthew McConaughey, Michael Caine, I believe, is in that movie.
Don't spoil who else is in it. We got to find out when we watch it. Yeah.
I haven't seen. I'm going to let you guys know this now. I haven't seen it in almost 10 years.
Oh, so you haven't seen it since the theater the first time?
I haven't seen it since the first time I got it on Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to be diving in really deep with it this week. Interstellar, next week's episode 327. The week after that, we will talk Home Alone on December the 17th. We will take Christmas Eve off, and then we will talk Nosferatu on New Year's Eve to end out the year. So should be a fun way to end the year. But next week, Interstellar should be a fun episode.
Christopher Nolan's masterpiece about space travel.
Any final thoughts on the Robin Williams episode before we dive deep into space?
Yeah, I have a couple things to say before we go. Robin was a great person, brought joy to the world, not only to the people but animals. He used to have a best friend that was an animal. I think a gorilla named Coco. I think her name's Coco. And there's a video on YouTube with him meeting her and hanging out with her because she loved watching Robin Williams movies, and so he would she like pulls on his hair. He's like, yeah, I'm hairy too. You know, it's just cute getting to watch him interact with a gorilla. So I recommend people searching that video out. That's a real good one. And then the video of her being told about his passing was fucking heartbreaking. But she fucking started crying, dude. It's fucking sad. But you know, I didn't get to go down the well like you did with all revisiting all of his movies because you went through quite a Robin Williams journey to get to this point. So we have something good to talk about.
I stayed up late, man.
Oh, you did more than that shit. You did like 2 or 3 days binging on some Robin Williams.
He wanted to do Robin Williams next week, and we were supposed to do Interstellar this week, and so he would have gone through the entire filmography. But
I kind of liked how I was like, okay, I kind of want to see Interstellar in the IMAX too, but then I was like, it's good to one ending with Robin Williams, one beginning with Matthew McConaughey. So it worked out great. So next week, new episode, Interstellar, episode 327, December the 10th, I believe is next Tuesday. Yeah, December the 10th. Next Tuesday on a whole new episode of the Cine-Men movie podcast. Have a good week. Love y'all. See you next week.
Neater.
Hook 'em.